Yeah, okay. Yeah. Polo shirt's a little bit more robust.
Yeah. Right, we've all done hair and makeup. The red lights are on. You've got your Bennett's mug. An assortment, an array of things in the background. We were going to invest in indoor plants. Lovely. Well, welcome to our revitalised and rejuvenated series of talking heads. That's what we called it back in the day. 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Can you believe it? When we did it originally back during lockdown. So it was a series of Zoom-based interviews back then. But here we are in real life with real people in the studio in Peterborough at BikeSocial. I'm joined by my co-host, Steve Rose.
Hello.
Who's also my boss, so be nice. And he's a BikeSocial publisher, and we've got guest number one for episode number one, Mr. Ross Burridge.
Hello.
Hello, Ross, and welcome to the show, welcome to the series. Ross is the head of marketing and racing.
That's it.
For Kawasaki UK. Am I right? That's the right title, isn't it?
That's it, yep. Yep, that's what I'm doing currently, yep.
Oh, we're off to a good start in that case. Yeah. So this series is both audio and visual. So we're making it as a podcast. And what do you call a visual podcast?
Who knows?
I don't know, whatever.
Answers on a postcard.
Yeah.
Well, answers on an email. I don't postcards still exist.
I don't know whether they do. The aim of the game here is to make sure that we are entertaining but also informing in a sort of conversational manner by inviting a different representative of the motorcycle world into each of our episodes. So whether that's manufacturer-based or whether it's event-based or whether that's an agency or the MCA, for example. And as we go through the series, hopefully we'll provide you with lots and lots of interesting people to listen to. So so the aim of the game really is to get to know you a bit more, Ross, and a bit more about your sort of past, why you are where you are, how you got to where you are, and a bit more about Kawasaki's, I guess, the aim of the game for 2025 and beyond. And I'm sure there'll be questions that you're not allowed to answer, but
I'll try my best.
Yeah. Steve, have I missed anything?
Don't think so. No, I can't wait.
So go on then, Ross. How long have you been at Kawasaki now?
Well, this is actually my 19th year now at Kawasaki. Wow. Yeah, so it's sort of gone really, really fast, but also feels like I've been there forever as well, which is kind of quite a nice feeling, really. I mean, I started riding bikes when I was 6 years old. Started off with a little Italjet 50, moved on to TY80s, rode Fantic trials bikes, and then moved up to sort of gas Montesa beaters. And I've always kind of ridden trials throughout my whole life and rode up at national level schoolboy trials.
National level, really? That's fierce.
Were you
9'7" then as well?
yeah, exactly. The all-in-one lycra suit looks a lot better on me then than it would do now.
I've already made a faux pas here because those who are listening to this as a podcast can't see the fact that you are 9'7".
yeah, 6'4", but yeah, close enough. I grew up riding trials, and my dad was a huge bike fan and kind of thrust me into it from a young age, and it took over our lives really for all of my youth, which was awesome. So I stopped doing that when I was maybe 18. Other things in life took over. Gear and girls and all the other things that ruined the chances of potentially a professional sports career. But so that kind of stopped, and did a few different jobs. Nothing really sort of, that type of age, you're not really quite sure what you're going to do in life. And one day an advert come up in the paper or wherever it was for Kawasaki, and thought, working my bikes. I've ridden them all my life. Let's give it a go. And that's where it all sort of started. So I joined as a marketing assistant, basically helping out with shows and events and press fleet and that sort of thing. And then gradually throughout the 19 years, kind of taken on more and more responsibility, and kind of where I am now.
Had you ridden Kawasaki's before?
No, I hadn't actually. No, I mean, all throughout my life, it was all off-road bikes, really, as in trials bikes, which obviously Kawasaki aren't involved in, other than the KT 250, which we have, the only trials bike we've ever made, which Martin Lambert, if he watches this, he knows I'm very jealous because he's actually got 3 of them.
Really?
And I'm desperate to buy one off of them. But
what era was that then? Was that 70s?
70s, yeah, 70s. 73, 4, 5, maybe something like that. Wow. Gorgeous thing. We've got a really beautifully restored one as well at the office. But in my era, there was there was no Kawasaki trials bikes, unfortunately. So it was everything but. My first road bike, as much as I hate to say it, was CBR 600. It was a great bike, to be honest. I love riding that, and I didn't ride a Kawasaki until I worked for Kawasaki, actually. Now I ride nothing but.
Exclusively.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you didn't tell them that in the interview, though, did you?
No.
19 years, man and boy.
Yeah. It's been a great journey. You know, the company's the same but changed a lot at the same time. You know, throughout that 19 years, and there's a few of us who are still there that were there when I started. But you know, people come and go, and the job evolves and changes, and like every company, I think it's it becomes maybe a little bit smaller, and people take on more and more responsibility. So I get involved in lots of different things now, which is great.
There's been big changes in the motorcycle industry in that time, hasn't it? You know, in terms of the bikes we're buying, and the kind of the age of the riders, and all sorts. It's transformed.
It has totally, yeah, exactly. You know, the average age of our customer now, not just ours, but the motorcycle industry, you know, in general is a lot older than what it was when I started. You know, I think it's creeping into the 50s now, and that's something that we really do have to change. You know, it's great selling bikes that have high value to these guys and girls who can afford to buy them, but for sure we need to look at ways of bringing young people into the industry as well. So that's changed, and like you say, the style of bike, you know, when I first started it was all super sports bikes, and now it's all adventure bikes and sports tourers, and you know that sort of changed as well. So
the sports tourer thing is fascinating, isn't it? Just because it sort of went really quiet, and come back quite strongly. And in a way, I think Kawasaki's Z1000SX was probably the first of the revival of the sports tourer, wasn't it? That was the bike that seemed to make the biggest impression.
100%, yeah. And for a while there, we kind of had that market segment to ourselves, really. There's a couple of bikes now that are sort of coming into that arena and a competitor for the SX. But since 2011, I think when the first iteration of it came out, that's been our best-selling bike ever since, and still is in its latest iteration today. So it's a really important segment for us, for sure.
So it became the Ninja 1000, didn't it? And then the Ninja 1100 ever since, since this year.
That's it, yeah, 1100, first one this year, and this year we've also got the SE version as well, so for the first time. So it's and to be honest, so far the trend has continued in 2025, and that Ninja 1100 SX SE is already our best-selling bike of the year so far this year. So I think it's staying around for a while to come.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I haven't ridden it. You've ridden it, haven't you?
Yeah, we did the group test where we pitched it against other sort of sporty touring bikes, and it was it met the brief. I think it was our conclusion. No plot spoiler. Well, yeah, there was a plot spoiler, I suppose. You can't watch the video on YouTube. It did everything very, very well. It was an impressive bike. So much so that I think one of our colleagues who was in the video too, and he's a genuine customer. He's looking to swap his S1000 XR for something, and that very much floated his boat. It's a lovely, lovely bike. Yeah, it's quick enough, comfortable enough, and it just does everything.
Yeah, that's the thing I think with that bike. You know, you can go and have a thrash around on a Sunday afternoon, no problem. You can commute to work on it, no problem. Or you could, we've had stories of customers riding 200 miles, doing a track day, and then riding 200 miles back home again, and it kind of does all of those things reasonably well. So as a package, I can see why it's our number one seller.
So let's move it back to you. What is your typical week? What does a head of marketing and racing? I can't think of anyone else with a head of marketing and racing title. It sounds really cool.
Made it up. Yeah, I made it up. Yeah. What do you want to be called? I want to be called that. That sounds all right. Yeah.
Chief of sitting down.
That's it, yeah. It's like I was alluded to earlier a little bit. It's really, really varied. So there's the racing element, which we can talk a little bit more about separately. But that's kind of looking after all of our racing endeavours. From sort of youth motocross all the way through to British Superbike to the roads, and kind of working with all the teams and riders that we have to ensure that they're representing Kawasaki in the best way possible in what they do, so that we can then utilise it in our marketing effectively. Because as much as we all love motorbike racing, it's it is fun, but it can't just be fun. There has to be, a use case for it for the business. And then on the sort of the marketing side, I have a small team that look after our advertising, all of our creative design, all of our shows and events. I manage a PR agency with Whole Shop PR, who do a really good job for us. So I basically have a bit of a touch point in all areas of marketing, to be honest.
And you presumably you've learned those skills over the last 19 years, and to create the role that you have created. And really, Steve and I were talking earlier on. How does one become the next Ross Burridge?
Easier than you're making it sound. Yeah, I was very, very lucky in that I came into the job of a sort of fairly basic level, and I was lucky enough that I had some really good people above me in the business. One of which was Martin Lambert. He originally recruited me. He was marketing manager at the time, and he spent a lot of time sort of working with myself and developing what I knew, what I experienced. Basically, just learned from the people above me, and then kind of as they moved on to do something else, I just took on their responsibility. So it was very much a learn on the job kind of thing. I don't think you could come into a role like mine or the sort of me's of the other manufacturers in the industry without having quite a lot of experience. You do need to sort of learn as you go on the job, because there is so much to learn.
I think it's really interesting as someone who's worked on the other side of it for 30 years now. You see many people come into the bike industry who maybe come from the car world or and you see lots of enthusiasm when those people come in. But most of the people who really make a difference in bikes and who stick around and do a really good job, there's a passion for bikes at the heart of it. And I think it's one of those things that it's something that's unique about the bike industry. The people, there are so many good people in it who are in it because they've got that passion for bikes.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. I think you have to. I think for longevity in this business, you have to like the product. If you want to go and work for a washing machine company or whatever, there's not going to be any passion with the product, and you see people switching jobs the whole time. But I think with motorbikes in particular, it's a certain type of person that we all have within us that love the product and stick with it. And
just understanding the rider, and that's the thing is if you know how a rider's feeling about any particular circumstance situation, you can build something to do that. You can help them in some way. And that's, I think that's a lot of what, we forget sometimes that the industry job is to help people enjoy their passion, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good point. In terms of, we mentioned it earlier on about sort of the changing in customer over the last 19 years. What sort of work are you doing? Are you actively doing work on trying to understand the modern day motorcyclist or what that motorcyclist might look like in 10 years or another 19 years time? Because we're doing a bit of work, aren't we, in terms of trying to understand the data that we very fortunately have access to via the insurance database here and all of the quotes that we run. So it makes it slightly easier, I guess, for us to try and understand or try and invest a bit of time and try and work out, analyse, I think is the word, isn't it, to work out what is happening, who are the riders of today and what are they riding. But do you kind of get involved in that stuff?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely. We're always trying to work out who the customer is. Obviously, we're one step removed from the actual customer in terms of dealing with them. Our dealers are the people on the front line as such. But we collect a lot of data from shows and events that we attend, which is really good when we actually get the sort of touch point to speak to the customers, and the only time we really get to do that. And we take a lot of data from shows and events and also from leads through all of our digital advertising, etc., to try and build a picture of not only who are buying the bikes and riding the bikes now, but who are interested and maybe haven't actually physically made that purchase yet. And from a digital advertising point of view, digital marketing through our social media, etc., we analyse the data that we get back from that. And we actually use an external company who track sort of the customer journey all the way through our advertising to the point they get to the dealer, and we can kind of see what they're clicking on, what they're looking at, what their interests are, etc. From that, then we can try and pitch our product to these people in the correct way, the correct time, and the correct avenue. So, yeah, we do a lot of work with it. Ultimately, we know generally, like I said earlier, the customer is older than what they used to be, the average customer now. So what we're trying to do is trying to push the fact that we've got a great set of 500cc bikes a new ZX4RR. We've got a couple of great 125s. We've even got our EV bikes now as well, who all maybe focusing slightly at a younger audience, and we're trying to target that younger audience and make them see that motorcycling is cool. It is something that they should want to get involved in, and there's a great community for them to be involved in. And it's difficult because the person, the sort of 20-year-old now is probably different from the 20-year-old when 20 years ago sort of started doing it, but. And maybe motorcycling doesn't mean the same thing to a younger person now than it did maybe when we were younger, but I think it still can, and I think we've all just got to collectively work together to try and get that younger person intrigued.
It's funny, I've never met anybody, I'm genuinely never met anybody who's been a motorcyclist who gave up motorcycling because they didn't enjoy it. People give up motorcycling for all kinds of reasons, and I think there is that. It is still every bit as thrilling, exciting. There's every bit as many good reasons to do it as there ever were, and I think it's a really interesting question as to what do we need to do as an industry to encourage more young people to try it and get it. Like, that sounds awfully kind of patronising from like me sitting there as an old bloke going, well, why aren't you young'uns doing it? But I can't see it. It's something that made such a massive difference to my life when I was that age, and it wasn't to do with the culture or the times. I don't think at that point. It was that sense of going from having a bicycle or a bus or a lift from our parents to being completely independent without the thing of, because driving a car, you've got to take lessons for 6 months, you've got to take a test, you may or may not pass your test even before you can think about buying a car. But a bike is, you can do CBT on Friday, you can buy a bike on Saturday, you can be on the road on Sunday.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah, technically you can. I think there's just some barriers to entry now for youngsters that are a little bit harsher now than when I started riding, for example, and that's what we've got to try to get around. You just mentioned about the test. I think it isn't quite as simple as that now. With this new style of test now that exists, if that was simplified and maybe explained in a little bit more of a simpler way. I know the MCIA are doing a lot of work to try and get the test simplified. That's one barrier to entry. The price of bikes are, quite expensive now, and as soon as you get out of that 125cc range, they are then quite expensive. Hence, at the moment you can see a lot of sort of deals and offers that all of us as manufacturers are doing, trying to make the bikes as affordable as possible for people to get into. And then you've just got the general road condition and things like that as well. So I think it is a little bit trickier now, I think, than before, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't stop trying to really get them engaged and involved. And I think, we try and make as much available as possible to be inclusive to young riders as the older generation riders as well, whether it's at shows and events or through our club Kawasaki or anything like that. We try and include and appeal to younger riders as well, but it's tricky.
Yeah, and I think there's been almost a generation gap as well. We've probably had at least one generation that hasn't ridden regularly. If you think back probably 20, 30, 40 years, people rode for utility. And so biking was in the family. Most people had somebody in the family that rode. And as that's declined a bit, there are probably fewer kids who've got the influence of another rider in the family. Yeah. And also then all those difficult conversations about safety or whatever from people who maybe haven't actually experienced it, but just kind of hearing it second hand or third hand. Yeah. We should be grateful really. So many people are doing it because there's a lot to overcome.
Yeah, no, there is
to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's the type of topic that we could dedicate several hours to.
yeah, us and everybody else in the industry probably. It's everybody's talking about it, aren't they?
Yeah, well, you've been to several conferences, haven't you, recently? And again, we could easily end up down that rabbit hole.
maybe for another episode.
We'll do it then.
Yeah, let's talk about bikes.
Yeah, Ross, let's talk about bikes. Do you own any?
Do you know what? I don't own any, no. I have, I own one, and I own an old Gas 250 trials bike, which is just basically the last trials bike I had that when I rode regularly, and I kept it, and that's it. And I don't even think it runs at the moment. In terms of a road bike, we're lucky enough that with the job I have and the fleet of bikes that we have available, that should I want to go and ride a bike, I can sort of take a bike and go and ride it for a weekend or whatever. So no, I haven't actually physically got one in the garage at the moment, but luckily I have the opportunity to, and do take that opportunity quite often to go and ride our of range.
If the whole fleet's available then, because I'm assuming you'd have to ride a Kawasaki. If the whole fleet's available, which is the one that you choose first?
Do you know what? I would have always gone to, up until recent years, I'd have always gone sports bike. I'd have always gone ZX10 or ZX6. But to be honest with you, and I still would on track, if we're going on track, then ZX6 is sort of my favourite bike really, because you can just sort of give it a bit of a handful and still be sort of semi in control. But I think for the road, Z900 RS is just a bit of me. It's beautiful looking thing. It's got that sort of, it gives you that nostalgic feeling, but at the same time, it's got a great amount of technology, works perfectly well. It's really smooth, sounds lovely, and it just looks stunning. And if I want to go out for a ride on a Sunday, my dad's actually also got a Z900 RS, so sometimes we go out and have a potter on one of those.
That's the one with the Olins, isn't it, front and back?
Yeah, the SE version's got Olins on the rear. Yeah, so it's lovely, just lovely bit of kit. Yeah, it really is nice.
You mentioned ZX10. Is that still your Halo product? It's Euro 5 plus compliant, is?
No.
Question mark?
No. So no, the ZX10R is Euro 5. So that's currently still available for sale. We've got 25 models, the 2025 model in stock. But because it's Euro 5, it's had to go through the end of series derogation process. So we've got plenty of stock for this year, but as of currently, no, that bike is only Euro 5.
What are sales like for those for sports bikes? You've reintroduced the ZX6, didn't you? Well, ZX4 as well.
Yeah. I mean, the ZX4 has been fantastic. The ZX4 has just taken off. To be honest, it did really, really well last year. It's great fun. We've got the Kawasaki British Superteen Championship, which is a one-make series for that bike, the ZX4RR, and I think that's helped with it as well. But it's just a fantastic little thing. So we've done really well with that. The ZX6R, I think everyone was kind of saying, "Oh, sports bikes are dead," and gradually, bit by bit, they were all kind of going away a little bit. But then now there's been a little bit of a resurgence in that, and obviously not just us, but other manufacturers as well have an offering in that class. So. That also sells well. But there's no getting away from the fact that super sports bikes aren't the primary sort of sales of bikes these days now. What
made the difference, you think, when the ZX6 came back? Was it just that the market had changed? Was it a price thing? Was it because it came back at a really kind of competitive price, and the other bikes that have come back in that sector, the pricing seems is kind of it's different from what it was when they disappeared.
Yeah, I think really you just have to sort of look back over the past 5 to 10 years. There've been a number of bikes that have disappeared and then reappeared again, and that's basically every time we go through one of these new emission laws upgrades. Yeah. So when Euro 4 changed to Euro 5, that was when that bike disappeared, because at that time it wasn't deemed saleable enough in Europe to make a Euro 5 version of it.
Yeah, I guess there's a cost to you guys to put it through Euro 5, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it still carried on selling around the rest of the world, just not in Europe. But then I think you don't know what you've got till it's gone, and realise that it actually had left a hole, not just in the UK, but in the whole of Europe. So when the company got to a point where it could reintroduce it to the new emissions standard, that's when it came back. Yeah. And at the moment, you say in terms of price is... it's critical at the moment, and there's a lot of benchmarking and making sure things are the right price for what they are. So no, I'm chuffed that bike came back in and it's doing well.
I forget you signed up to a Bennett's track day on a ZX6 in that case.
That's it. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, can't say I'll be that fast, but I'll be there.
It's all about the entertainment.
Exactly.
10 years ago. We talk about 5 years ago being a bit of a strange one for lockdown, but 10 years ago, you introduced the H2 and the H2R.
Yeah. So
supercharged mayhem. I can't believe it's 10 years already. Well, how has it been? In terms of the supercharged journey, I know there's more than just those two models now, but in terms of the last 10 years, as a sort of the crazy forced induction being a good thing for Kawasaki. Steve, you often talk about these patterns, don't you, with Kawasaki? Every now and again, something mad comes along.
Manufacturers have a personality, don't they? Even as a big company, and I always think of Kawasaki as being a generally very switched on, very smart motorcycle company who every now and then just seemed to have a mad moment, and whether that was the kind of the two strokes in the 70s, the whole kind of GPZ 900 thing in the 80s, the ZXR when that came out, and they just every now and then they have this some. It's as if somebody opens a door and finds this daft idea and goes, let's do that. And it's part of the personality of Kawasaki.
That was pretty much what it was. It was literally a look what we can do, and it was a Japanese guy over in the factory who said, I think we can do this and let's do it and let's have a go. And one of the main reasons behind that machine, the H2R in particular, was we are the only company, or we were the only company who could actually produce 100% of that bike in-house. So we have a gas and turbine division over in Japan in the factory, which meant that we could make the supercharger in-house. So if someone else had made that bike, the supercharger would have had to been brought in by a third-party company. So it was kind of this, look, we're not just motorbikes, we do a variety of different products, but we can make this in-house, and we're going to make it as badass as possible. and that's what they did, and it really was. It was just the launch. My hearing today is still affected by the H2R on the dyno at the NEC show.
Motorcycle Live,
Motorcycle Live. It was just so cool. But we were having to hand out earplugs for people. For anyone who doesn't know, we put a dyno on our stand at the show, and we strapped an H2R to it, and we had guys from Dyno Jet just doing power runs on the H2R, which, if you haven't heard one, is well, you guys obviously have, but is bloody loud.
Yeah.
And it was just unbelievable. I've got pictures which I'll send you. I don't know if you can cut in, but it just showed the crowds of people that were around this bike. It was unreal. It
was fantastic. I remember it. Yeah, I remember it. Several of the stands close to the Kawasaki stand.
Yeah, we weren't popular.
Very grim. But that's what I say about that kind of quirkiness of Kawasaki, because who else will build a bike that is so noisy you can't use it on certainly any road in Europe I can think of. You can't even use it on pretty much any track I can think of.
Yeah.
But let's just build it anyway because we can.
Exactly, and it's I'm glad they did, and it's it's been a route that we started to head down, and like you say, you alluded to, Michael, there are a few other bikes that have supercharged technology, Ninja H2SX and the ZH2. We've now obviously partnered with, now own Bimota, and we've got the Bimota Terra that's going to be coming out soon, which is kind of an adventure style bike, and that's got a supercharged H2 engine in it as well. So it's a supercharged adventure bike. That's pretty cool. So again, it's a little bit like we're trying to sort of push down that sort of extreme route, and I like the fact that we can do both. We can do your standard sort of bikes that appeal to the majority, but we have some things that are just very cool as well.
And actually, certainly the SX in particular is a hell of a bike, isn't it? It's because it's a practical, if such a thing can really be in existence. It's a usable version of that kind of the H2 concept, isn't it?
It's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, it's an easy bike to ride, but it's a hell of a thrill as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that really, you mentioned is the ZX10R, our Halo bike earlier, but realistically, the H2SX SE is seen now as our kind of Halo offering, really.
I remember also, I didn't go on the launch of the H2, but one of the guys who worked for the magazine I was publishing at the time did, and he was saying, I remember he came back from the launch saying that actually there was a lot of talk at the launch about there being a kind of a series of smaller capacity supercharged bikes that were hoped to come out from that. And I can't remember, there was talk with the 650 twins, and we never saw those. Was there a reason for that, or are they? Can we expect them soon? Or
the hype around the supercharged element, which was brand new to us at the time, incurred a lot of questions from media about what you're going to do moving forward. And I think at that point in time, there was potentially an idea of doing more or introducing more of the range with that type of technology. But I think as time went on over the next coming couple of years or so, other sort of avenues became not necessarily more important, but more of a focus on for overall sales reach. And obviously the EV and the hybrid kind of journey began, whilst that's recent in terms of what the public see, obviously that's taken quite a long time behind the scenes to do. So I think that the I'm not saying that there never will be, but at the moment that's our kind of supercharged offering, and the focus has just gone into other avenues at the moment.
I think it's something I know we get excited about this in the press, and customers get excited. We forget sometimes, don't we, that whilst we can dream up a bike and say, why don't you build this? The reality is that from somebody having the idea and signing it off to it actually appearing in the showroom is many years of production and sourcing suppliers and prototypes. And it's not as simple as just going, let's just do this.
No. There's a massive journey behind each bike. There's bikes now that are quite far down the line in terms of design and all the rest of it, but it might not be coming out till 2029, for example. There is it is a sort of 4 to 5 year window from concept to it arriving. So, you never say never. I would love to see some more supercharged bikes. I think they're cool, but at the moment there's the focus is on the product range that we have at the moment.
Yeah, and I guess that whole thing about the production, the timeline for it must be when we're in a world where people are talking about no more sales of petrol bikes at whatever that day ends up being.
Yeah,
that must be from a corporate point of view, when you're trying to plan your next model range for the next 10, 15 years. That must be some real headaches, because you've got to, hence why I guess you're starting to invest in the EV stuff and the hybrid stuff, because you've got to learn that technology, and you've got to find the suppliers for that technology, and there's a whole kind of just a whole system of production that we never think about, but must be really difficult for you guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's obviously quite a few steps removed from us in our daily lives in terms of that level of what's going on in terms of concept and design, etc. But yeah, I mean, you can't ignore the fact that with this date of where are we at? I think at 2040 at the moment, is it, for everything petrol and EV? Sorry, everything EV. Will that happen? Who knows? Will that date move? Who knows? But what I think you can't do is you can't rest on your laurels and just sort of hope that it will not happen, because then you can sort of get left behind a little bit. So hence we've invested and focused on these EV and hybrid products over the past year or so, which get different kind of reactions from the motorcycling public. You get the type of customer who's I'm petrol through and through, and I'll never look at anything else, and which is great, which is fine. I'm a petrol head too, but then you get the other sort of maybe smaller segment who are like, oh, actually, I can see the benefits of it, and maybe still have a petrol bike and have a look at an EV bike. Because I'll tell you what, I don't know if you've ridden one of ours or any of the others that are available, but they're actually quite good fun for nipping around the town or nipping around a city. The little EV bike, it's actually good fun. I think sometimes maybe people just need to sort of broaden the sort of minds a little bit and don't just automatically think it's rubbish because it's.
I think this goes back to what we were saying earlier about the demographic, because there are a huge amount of motorcycling in the UK at the moment who are those of us who started riding in the 70s or 80s and have grown up with it, and it's this, those same customers who've gone through their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s as riders, and you can sort of understand why they might be hesitant to try new stuff. But actually, at the other end of this, the next generation of riders who've grown up on electrically assisted pedal bikes, for them, the idea of an electric motorcycle is almost, the norm. So it's easy for my generation to be sceptical about them, but you're not aiming to sell them to me, really. I'm sure you'd like to, but I'm not going to be the target customer for those bikes.
No. By the way, we're not fast who we sell them to. We just want to sell them.
No.
But no, I mean, realistically, it's age-related customer and geographically related customer. You're unlikely to sell it to a mid-50s petrol head who lives out in the countryside somewhere.
Yes.
We get that. For someone who maybe lives on the outside of a city or a town and works inside, nipping in and nipping back out on it is honestly absolutely ideal.
Yeah. And the hybrid thing, really it should be the best of both of those things, isn't it? And I haven't ridden the hybrid bike yet, but I'm really interested in it because I just think, okay, it's the first generation, and we know the second generation will be better, and the third generation will be even better. But you've done it, and that's the point. You've actually gone and done it, and you've now getting the data, I guess, and the feedback.
That's it. That's exactly it. You've got to like I say, you can't rest on your laurels. You've got to get going with it. Yes, you're right. The second version will be better, will be more refined, and then the third version and the fourth version. But unless you start, you're not in that process, are you? And the hybrid bike, really, I mean, it's the power of a 700cc bike, the economy of a 250cc bike, and the acceleration off the line of a ZX10. Don't get me wrong, a ZX10 will soon clear off. But all of those things combined create actually quite a fun riding experience that then you can have it fully electric in a city, but you can go and enjoy a perfectly good twin-cylinder petrol bike out on the country roads as well. So.
Yeah, without the range anxiety. That's the
exactly.
And that's the point,
exactly,
isn't it?
yeah.
How are sales? Have they been performing all right? Not just in the UK, but globally.
Of the EV and the hybrid, it was a slow start for the reasons I just mentioned, really, but it's now definitely picking up. There's other countries who maybe, for example, France, Paris is a full blown no-go for petrol vehicles. So I think Kawasaki France have done quite well with them because for that exact reason. I'm not sure it's only Paris. I think other cities in France do the same as well. In some of the southern European countries, when you've got cities like Barcelona, Madrid, Rome, etc., that it's more kind of accepted there because they kind of have that moped culture, that scooter culture type thing down there. So jumping on a small EV bike's fine. In the UK, it's been tougher, but it's starting to pick up now. It definitely is starting to pick up. You've probably seen recently we've done a little bit with the price, and
very attractive.
That's always going to help. So I think sometimes you got to sacrifice a little bit and maybe get it going with a cheaper version, or a cheaper price, and then once the bikes are out there and people are experiencing them and talking about them to their friends, etc., then hopefully they'll become even more popular. But it's going okay.
It's been a big challenge on it for the whole EV market. I think certainly in bikes, the price to get people onto them and get people using them, and because there will be there are people now for whom an electric motorcycle is the right choice, and they're quite happy with it because they've got a different way of riding, a different way, say, living in a different part of the world, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Price is always important. So hopefully we'll continue to do okay with them.
And in the meantime, we've got H2SXs.
Yeah, exactly.
Supercharged all the way.
Yeah, look, we're still 99% petrol-focused motorcycle company. I think that unless you're planning alongside that for an eventuality that may or may not happen, I think you have to hedge your bets, and that's what we're doing. And it's not just electric. We're focused on hydrogen as well. Yeah. We've showcased the hydrogen kind of project that's ongoing at the moment, and that's unbelievable technology as well. That's really, really cool. So hopefully in a few years we might see that in production as well. And who knows? It might not go EV. Maybe we go down a hydrogen route. Who knows? Yeah.
Is there anything you can tell us about that at this stage?
Not really, other than kind of what's been out in the press already. We've showcased the bike. It's not how it's going to end up looking. It's kind of still very much in a prototype phase. It's got those kind of quite big hydrogen sort of canisters on the back, which make it look a little bit unique as such. But the technology is being developed. Kawasaki are working with other vehicle companies as well in Japan and around the world to kind of pool the expertise and push hydrogen forward as quickly as possible, Toyota being one of them. I think that within the next 5 years we'll see a finished product. That may well be the alternative fuel that we end up going down. Certainly the cleanest one.
Are all your bikes built in Japan?
No, not all of them, no. The kind of the bigger capacity ones are built in Akashi in Japan, and the sort of smaller capacities are built in a factory in Thailand.
But either way, they just get shipped all over the world. How long is that? That must be a hell of a logistical operation.
It is at the moment when you can't go through the canal. Still, yeah. So at the moment, obviously, the bikes are all made in the Far East, and currently to get to Europe, they actually have to go down underneath the southern point of Africa and around. So, which adds to obviously the time that it takes to get here. Then it adds to the cost as well. I think each ship. It costs $1 million more to go around that route overall than going through there. You know, when the prices of bikes might go up slightly and everyone's up in arms, it's kind of that geopolitical situations that we find ourselves in throughout the world that have an effect on prices. It's tricky. But no, they come by boat and it's around about 6 weeks, other than if we need something desperately, like quite often for racing, we'll air freight over some bikes if we need them a bit quicker. Then it's just a few days.
Yeah, we'll come on to racing in just a second, but before we move away from the sort of the alternative fuel or even forced induction, I just want to talk about the Supercharged Showdown.
Yeah.
So this is an event that between Kawasaki and Bennett we're putting on in May, this is May of 2025, 21st of May at Elvington Airfield, just outside of York. It's a 1.8 mile runway, and we've employed a professional speed testing, is that the right word? Speed company.
Measuring.
Measuring. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, straight liners. Anyway, they've got loads of speed guns and equipment and safety paraphernalia. But it means that you can come along. So if you own a supercharged Kawasaki, or if you fancy riding a supercharged Kawasaki, then get to BikeSocial.co.uk, and there's a lot of information there about it. Basically, just turn up and have a run down the runway, and it's you get time to see how fast you can go legally. And then if you are a member of Club Kawasaki, or if you are a BikeSocial member, there's a discounted rate if you want to go up and down the runway. Not up and down, just up. Or just down.
Yeah.
What have I missed out? Oh, the FS3 boys are going to be there, aren't they? Christian Idden and Max Cook on their race bikes. They'll be doing some demo runs. We've got Johnny Davis, multiple Guinness World Record holder, stunt rider. He's the man who skis behind a H2SX.
Yeah, for some reason. Yeah, that's what he did. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what made him think one day, do you know what I'm going to do today?
Yeah,
Get the tea trays out.
Yeah. We're really looking forward to that event as a whole. I think it's I think it should be quite an entertaining one. When we were speaking about the H2R earlier, when we had one at the office, a few of us there looked at each other and said, right, we need to have a go on this. And we went to, I think it was Bruntingthorpe, and we all did over 200 mile an hour that day on the H2R. And honestly, the smile on our faces at the end of the day was unreal. So I think, yeah, giving customers the opportunity to bring their H2 or their H2R, hopefully there's some H2Rs that come, that would be awesome.
Well, yeah, Elvington will be one of the few places you could ride, wouldn't it? Because there's no noise restriction.
Exactly. No, I think people will have you think, well, how much fun can it be just riding for a mile in a straight line? Tell you what, at 180, 190 mile an hour, it's a bloody lot of fun.
Yeah.
And safe, without any risk or any worries about anything. Just you and an open track would be pretty cool. So no, we look forward to that. The FS3 guys are going to be there. It's just after Donington Park BSB, so they're going to bring their race bike, and I think Max and Christian, I'm sure, will enjoy a blast up and down there, or just up the strip, and yeah, Johnny Davies is going to replicate his skiing behind the H2SX, which is insane. So yeah, no, it should be a good day.
Everyone is welcome, even if you don't own a Kawasaki. You're still welcome to come along and have a look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll tempt you into buying one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to have any of the demo bikes there?
Yes, I think we're gonna have an H2SX, and we'll have a ZH2, probably a couple of each, and there'll be an opportunity for a select few members of the public or customers to come and have a go themselves, and try and experience the bike in a way you can't ever really experience it on the road.
Very exciting. 21st of May for that one. A question about Bimota. You mentioned Bimota earlier on, your partnership with them. It's not a partnership, is it? You own Bimota, right?
Yes, we own Bimota 100% now. So we a few years ago we purchased 49% of the company, and then recently we've now owned Bimota outright. So across Europe, there's been a number of Kawasaki branches who have already got up and running with retailing Bimotas. We in the UK at the moment are literally, as we speak, going through the transition of setting ourselves up to retail them directly. So we'll have 4 or 5 existing Kawasaki dealers who will basically run a kind of shop-in-shop set up with Bimota and retail them directly as well, which should be up and running probably in the next 2 to 3 months.
Do you have some new corporate wear coming out? Do you have 2 caps?
I do have 2 caps. Yeah. I do have 2 caps. That's on its way as we speak. So it's a little bit strange, although it's actually quite cool, to be honest. I mean, when you go, right, we've got another brand that we've got to now market, sell, all the rest of it, you sort of think, oh, right, okay. But actually, it's because it's so different. It's actually quite an exciting thing to do, to have a bit of a play with a different brand, and they're very, very different to a Japanese brand in that you kind of got that Italian sort of flair and way of working, and some of the stuff they create is beautiful. It's the frames and swing arms and the bodywork and all the rest of it. All the Bimota bits are all absolutely stunning. And I was lucky enough to go to the factory in Rimini and have a look at where it's built, and it is literally handmade. There's a few benches there with a few guys, and they're hand building all these bikes, and you get that kind of exotic Italian flair, but with the Japanese engine, electronics, everything, where you can absolutely rely on everything. Not that you couldn't if it was Italian, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I think it's a difference, isn't it? That the Bimota of old, as I understand it, would buy in the kind of the donut engine and wiring, but they were putting it together without necessarily the oversight of the factory that had supplied some of that stuff, and that will be the difference now, when that you've got all the kind of the hand-built bits of Bimota, but you've got the Kawasaki quality control. Exactly that, and you're going to have a dealer network, an existing Kawasaki dealer network behind it that has all the backup of Kawasaki as well. So I think you can sort of reliably buy one knowing that you've got good warranty, good service, good parts supply, a customer service if you need it, etc., etc. So we're looking forward to it getting underway, to be honest. Yeah, and the race programme, we've only had Phillip Island so far, haven't we? But for a first round for a completely new bike, actually, I thought it was a pretty good result, wasn't it? Yeah, we were pretty happy when we found out that it was happening. They were going to switch, the KRT were going to switch from ZX10 to Bimota. It was always, there was a lot of questions to be asked. At first we sort of thought, okay, what's the future then of ZX10 in racing? But it's very, very much so that the ZX10R is still full focus for racing. We've got the Puccetti team as the official Kawasaki team of World Superbike, and obviously everything we're still doing is all still ZX10 focused. But yeah, the Bimota KB998 Rimini, it's a stunning bit of kit, and Alex and Axel had a good fair crack at the whip, I think, in Australia. Like you say, for first round, with not that much testing really, it was pretty successful. But then we've just had Portimao test, and Alex was third at the test there. So, and I think pretty confident about the bike. So we shall see how that round goes. And that's probably a better measure, because Phillip Island is it's got its kind of its own characteristics, hasn't it? It has, it has. I suppose so is Portimao to an extent, but it's. I know what you mean. Phillip Island always is it's sometimes a little bit of an anomaly. But it was a solid weekend, and they just gradually kept getting better. And I think that's probably what's going to happen throughout the year. I think they just, as the rounds progress, they do more and more testing, more and more development. It should just keep getting better and better, hopefully. You had no influence then, Kawasaki? You had no influence on what KRT are doing in terms of what they're using? No. So KRT basically is run from Japan, but the team is run by Provec, which is Kawasaki Racing Team, which is now Bimota by Kawasaki Racing Team, which are based in Barcelona. It's quite complicated. The engines are built in Japan, shipped across, and KRT in Barcelona put the bike together. So, no, that was very much a decision was made in Japan, and we're just kind of in the UK sitting and watching it happen to an extent. Well, do you think that will eventually come into the Bennett's BSB series? Do you think that the FS3 boys will? They must be looking at it. They must be thinking, right, we'll have some of that. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I can't say for sure what's going to happen yet, and that's not me being coy. I don't know. I think it's generally going to depend on how well it goes as an overall project in World Superbikes. We're not going to stop selling the ZX10R in the UK or worldwide. You would expect that we will always sell more ZX10s than we probably will do Bimotas. So, for us, still running that bike with FS3 in the British Superbike Championship is good for our marketing. Going back to what I was saying earlier, we've got to make sure it kind of works and helps us sell the bike. But yeah, if you spoke to Darren or Nigel, I'm sure they're looking at that Bimota thinking, yeah, that's quite nice. We'll have a go at that. So I don't know. I think if there was a really successful year one in World Superbikes and they wanted to grow the project further, and the Bimota kind of retail sales in the UK have taken off and everything's working really well, it might make sense to possibly run a Bimota in BSB. But
yeah, we'll have to find some budget because they won't be cheap to run.
Now, speaking of BSB, you've got a great lineup this year, haven't you, for 2025? A bit of youth, bit of experience with Christian Idden and Max Cook. But has the ZX10 gone through any kind of updates, development from a race package perspective?
Yeah, no, we're really excited about this year. Yeah, Christian's a great guy. He's had a lot of success in the past. He's a mature rider in that he knows what he wants. He knows how to go about his racing. And we're really looking forward to him switching on to Kawasaki. He's only done one very brief test that was unfortunately very rainy, which Portugal and Spain seemed to be for some reason for the last month or so. And that was only on a super stock bike, but he said, his sort of feedback was that he gelled with it straight away. So we're really excited to see what Christian can do. Max has kind of been slowly but surely plugging away. It's quick to think, he should be doing this and he should be doing that. He should be winning by now. But realistically, he was in junior superstock only a couple of years ago, and he's made this big step. And Nigel and the team have stood behind him and given him another opportunity this year. But we're expecting, hopefully big things from him for this year. But in terms of the bike, it's an ongoing process, as every race team will tell you. There's been a good amount of development work over the winter. Especially around the engine. We're lucky enough that we do have a good relationship with the KRT team, so we're lucky enough in that we get support direct from the factory with parts. So a lot of the engine parts are the same parts that you'd find in the World Superbike engine. So we get that support from them. We have a good link with the team where feedback that they get from the bike, they feed back down to us. Slightly less relevant now moving forward, obviously being Bimota, but engine upgrades we still very much benefit from, and some other sort of tweaks to electronics and chassis as well. Definitely not a revolution; it's a bit of an evolution of the bike over the winter, but the team are working hard, and hopefully it all pans out well for us.
You attend every round, don't you?
Yeah.
You've got a Superteens hat as well to wear, right?
Yeah, Superteens hat. Yeah. That was great last year. Honestly, that was Superbike. Obviously, that's where the lion's share of the money goes, and that's the halo sort of class in BSB, and we get that, and of course that's where our main effort goes. But the Superteens is like, I'm always sort of going, what's happening over there? It's the racing. I've never seen anything like it. Easy for me to say it was our class, but I genuinely believe that was the best racing of all of last year's. Every race, every round was just bar banging. The youngsters, they just don't care. You put them in front of the camera when we try and do our video series, and this all shines it there. The helmet goes on, and it's just elbows out, and they don't care, and I love it. So the ZX4. As soon as that came onto the production schedule, we looked at it and we thought, God, that'd be cool to make a race series out of that. And luckily Stuart Higgs was equally up for the idea and gave us the opportunity to do it. So yeah, last year was amazing, and this year we've got a new title sponsor with AJN Steel Stock, who are also the title sponsor of the FS3 team as well. So there's some nice synergy there, and those guys are great. They're helping us out a great deal. So yeah, I think it's just going to be another year of just bar banging action.
It's a good series, and it's affordable, isn't it? That's the thing. It's easy, accessible for people who want to get into it, and that was the two kind of main things from it, from like a rider point of view, where it's affordable. It's the most affordable class in that championship by far, and also the fact that it's a level playing field as well. Every bike is built by MSS Performance, and every bike is exactly the same. You can't do anything to it to make it better. Yeah. So whoever wins that championship is the best rider. We had a question that we about, and it's a bit of a silly question, but who decides how many hours on a bike?
Oh, this is it. Yes, I've got it written down here. So it came in via our bike club channel. Go to Bennett's Bike Club. So they said, why does the ZX10 have an R and an RR? The ZX6 only an R, but the ZX4 an RR. What's with all the R's?
That's a very, very good question.
Stumped.
That's a very, very good question.
Yeah.
The ZX10R and RR are depicted so by one being a race version. So
RR for race replica.
Yeah, basically. So an RR version generally in ZX10 form is race replica. So there are two different versions. So the ZX10 Single R, is a £17,000 bike that has lots of parts on it that for road use, and the RR is another £8,000 on top and has lots of different bits and pieces in it, in the engine specifically to make it tunable for superbike racing. So it's got titanium parts in the engine. So that's kind of the race replica version of that. The ZX6R is only an R because there isn't a race replica version of it. Yeah. However, there did used to be.
Yeah, as you said,
there used to be a ZX6RR, and that was a race version of that bike. The ZX4R and RR, the RR wasn't intended to do what we've done with it and be a race bike. We've just decided to do that for ourselves. So that doesn't really work on that front. It's just it's like an SE version, with SE being special edition. This is just an RR. I'm going to just talk myself into a hole on that one. So I'll tell you what, we've done a race series in the UK, so it's race replica in the UK as well.
I'm looking forward to the H2SX RR in that case.
Good question. Yeah, tricky to answer. But generally RR is the race version of the bike. Yeah.
It's funny, I'd forgotten about the ZX6RR.
Yeah.
That was the 600cc when the ZX6R was 636, wasn't it?
That's it. Yeah, exactly. And that was back when sort of Andrew Pitt was racing it and winning World Supersport titles and what have you. Yeah.
Steve, any other questions, or shall we let Ross be on his way?
We could talk for hours.
We could.
But, I don't have any other useful or interesting questions.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for joining in and being our not guinea pig. That's not the right term, is it? Our number one.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, great to come up and spend some time with you guys. Appreciate the invite.
Not at all. Before we go, then we've got to say, go and buy your bike insurance from Bennett's. If you do become a direct customer through Bennetts.co.uk, you get free BikeSocial membership, which is where you've got access to about 160 different deals and offers and discounts and all sorts of good things. And of course, you get special rates when you come to our wonderful events like the Supercharged Showdown. Visit us at Bike Club. I've already mentioned it. Bike Club's our sort of, for want of a better expression, a forum where all your questions will be answered by experts. We've got a Facebook group as well. That's the BikeSocial Facebook group. Come and find us there. Our YouTube channel. Anything else, Steve? What have I missed?
That'll do on it.
That'll do for now. All right. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.